Julia was radiant. The wedding dress, a stunning chiffon and lace design, accentuated her slender figure, and her smile lit up the room. She was surrounded by her best friends at the beauty salon, where the atmosphere was pure excitement. Laughter and whispers of anticipation filled the air as the women prepared for the big day. The scent of fresh nail polish and hair products mixed with the sweet aroma of flowers, creating an almost magical feeling. "You look beautiful, Julia," exclaimed Sophia, one of her closest friends, as she adjusted the pearl tiara in her hair. "Daniel is going to fall in love with you all over again when he sees you." "I hope so," Julia replied with a nervous smile, looking at herself in the mirror. "It's like a fairy tale, isn't it? Who would have thought it'd make it to this day?" They continued getting ready, sharing laughter and memories of the past. Each of them had a story to tell about Julia and her fiancé, Daniel, which only made her more excited. Soft music played in the background, creating the perfect soundtrack for that special moment. "Have you talked to Daniel today?" asked Carla as she applied a layer of lipstick to Julia's lips. "No, but he must be just as anxious as I am," Julia replied, winking at her reflection in the mirror. "I can't wait to see him at the altar." Finally, the moment to leave arrived. Julia took a deep breath, feeling excitement and anxiety mixing within her. Upon arriving at the church, the sight of the place adorned with white flowers and lit candles left her speechless. It was exactly as she had dreamed. The guests, all elegantly dressed, waited eagerly as the soft melody began to play. As Julia started walking down the aisle, her heart raced. She saw Daniel standing there, waiting for her, and felt a warmth that enveloped her. He looked handsome in his suit, with a smile that almost made her forget everything else. The world around her seemed to fade away, and all that mattered was that moment. "You look stunning," Daniel murmured when their eyes met. Julia smiled, her happiness overflowing. The officiant began the ceremony, and every word seemed to echo like soft music in her ears. Joy was written on every guest's face, and Julia felt like the protagonist of a romantic movie. However, as the ceremony progressed, she noticed that Daniel was frequently distracted, glancing at the phone in his pocket. A small discomfort began to form in her chest, but she tried to ignore it. After all, it was her special day. "Are you okay?" Julia whispered, leaning closer during one of the pauses in the ceremony. "Yes, just a little nervous," he replied, but his gaze quickly returned to his phone. This made Julia's heart tighten. She forced herself to focus on the officiant's words, but the worry grew with each passing moment. The ceremony continued, but Julia's unease didn't fade. Why was he so concerned with his phone? What could be so important that it took his attention away from the bride standing before him? She tried to push the thoughts aside, but the anxiety was turning into a feeling of discomfort. As the vows were exchanged and the soft music filled the space, Julia couldn't help but glance furtively at Daniel. What could be going through his mind? For a moment, she wished everything could be perfect, just as she had always dreamed. But deep down, a shadow of doubt began to form, creating cracks in her happiness. "We're going to be happy forever," she thought as the ceremony reached its climax. But a restlessness persisted, and the day that should have been the happiest of her life started to feel tinged with a strange and unfamiliar color. Julia took a deep breath as she watched the guests laughing and enjoying themselves around the reception. The celebratory atmosphere felt distant, almost dreamlike, while her heart sank into a storm of confusion and pain. Daniel's phone, left forgotten on the table, seemed to have become a cursed object, pulsing with secrets she wasn't ready to face. With trembling hands, she decided that she needed to know the truth. She approached the table where the phone was, the lively music in the background blending with her racing heartbeat. With a furtive glance, Julia picked up the device and unlocked the screen. What she saw made her blood run cold. Intimate messages from another woman filled the screen, words overflowing with affection, secrets and promises. Each notification was like a dagger plunged into her heart, and she felt the ground open up beneath her feet. The world around her dissolved into a blur, and the only thing that remained was the certainty of his betrayal. This can't be true, she murmured to herself. But reality forced itself upon her brutally. Julia felt a wave of anger and betrayal building inside her. It wasn't just about the messages. It was about everything Daniel represented and the future she had imagined with him. With determination renewed by pain, Julia walked back into the hall, the phone still in her hand, the messages burning in her mind. The faces of the guests, once smiling, now seemed blurred. She headed straight for Daniel, who was surrounded by friends, laughing and telling stories. "Daniel," Julia's voice echoed, cutting through the chatter around them. Everyone turned, the joy quickly transforming into tension. Daniel looked at her, an expression of confusion mixed with fear crossing his face. "Julia, what happened?" he asked, trying to hide his nervousness. "You know exactly what happened," she responded, her voice firm and cutting, echoing through the hall. "I just read your messages to another woman. How could you do this to me, on our day?" Silence fell over the room. The guests' faces turned toward them, shocked by the scene unfolding before their eyes. Whispered comments began to arise, and the festive atmosphere was replaced by a palpable tension. "Julia, let me explain," Daniel began, but Julia's fury left no room for him to finish. "Explain? What are you going to tell me? That it was a mistake? That you love me? You have no idea what this means to me, do you? I should be here celebrating our love, and you're betraying me." Her words came out as a shout, each syllable laden with pain and indignation. "Please don't do this here," Daniel pleaded, his voice faltering. "Let's talk in private." "Talk in private? You want me to keep this hidden?" "No, Daniel, I can't do that. I can't be the bride who stayed silent while the groom betrayed her. This is an insult to our history." Julia felt the tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She didn't want to appear weak in front of everyone. "Julia, I didn't want you to find out like this. I'm an idiot, I know. Please forgive me." Daniel was desperate, his friends around him looking as stunned as he was. "Forgive? Do you really think this is something I can just forgive?" Julia felt the anger turning into a sense of helplessness. She didn't want to hear his empty words anymore. The dream she had built was crumbling before her eyes, and she felt more alone than ever. The scene was surreal, the guests' gazes, the expressions of shock and curiosity. It all felt like a movie she was watching from the outside. She turned, determined, and began to walk toward the exit. The echo of whispers followed her, but she didn't care. What mattered now was her dignity, her self-worth. She felt the need to get out of there, far from the pain and betrayal. "Julia, wait," Daniel called after her, but his words were lost in the distance she was creating between them. The weight of the wedding dress became a burden, but her determination carried her out of the hall into the unknown, where she hoped to find herself again. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with warm shades of orange and pink as Julia sat on a bench in the park, her mind confused and her heart aching. The voices and laughter of other visitors seemed distant, as if she were in a world apart. The wedding dress, now a symbol of a broken dream, felt heavy on her crossed legs. She looked at the flowers around her, their beauty contrasting with the pain she felt. "How could I have been so naive?" she thought, as tears streamed down her face. Julia felt a mix of anger and sadness. Daniel's betrayal had left her reeling, but at the same time, a spark of determination began to shine within her. "I deserve more than this," she whispered to herself, wiping the tears away with the sleeve of her dress. It was at that moment that she felt the gentle touch of a hand on her shoulder. It was Carla, her best friend, who had found her there, lost in her thoughts. "Julia, I've been looking for you. You disappeared from the reception. What happened?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "I can't believe he did this to me, Carla, on our wedding day. How could he?" Julia replied, her voice choked with emotion. "He's an idiot. You don't need this in your life. Come on, we'll figure this out. You still have me and all your friends. You're not alone," Carla said, sitting down beside her and wrapping her in a tight hug. Julia took a deep breath, feeling a little calmer. "I just wish this was a nightmare and that I'd wake up soon. But it's not. It's real," she said, looking at her clasped hands in her lap. "It's real, but you're stronger than you think. How about we do something fun? A spa day, just the two of us. You need some time to take care of yourself, to pick yourself up, Carla suggested, trying to cheer her up. A spa day sounds good, Julia agreed, a timid smile beginning to appear on her face. I need a fresh start, something to make me feel alive again. Exactly. You deserve to feel amazing. And, by the way, I met an incredible designer at the reception. He was asking about you. Maybe we can find someone who'll help you forget that jerk, Carla said, winking. Designer? What do you mean? Julia asked, intrigued. The idea of meeting someone new began to light up in her mind. He's very charismatic, and he seemed genuinely interested in fashion. And Julia, you know fashion is your passion. You're a talented designer. Put your energy into that, Carla exclaimed, encouraging her. Maybe I do need to focus on work. Fashion has always been my refuge, and now it's time to rediscover it, Julia replied, feeling a bit more hopeful. With that, the two friends began planning their spa day, laughing and talking about the things they could still do together. Meanwhile, in Julia's mind, the image of Daniel began to fade, like the daylight disappearing on the horizon. The next morning, Julia prepared herself with a new focus. The spa day had been rejuvenating, and she felt as if she was being reborn. After a few hours of self-care, as she looked at herself in the mirror, she realized that the pain was still there, but something inside her had changed. I can get through this, she thought, full of determination. Later, while getting dressed for a fashion event, she received a message from Carla. Julia, are you coming to the event? The designer I told you about will be there. Let's have some fun, I promise. She hesitated for a moment, but then decided that she needed to get out, to feel alive again. Yes, I'll be there. Let's have some fun, she replied, a smile spreading across her face. When she arrived at the event, the atmosphere was vibrant, full of colors and sounds. The engaging music and the laughter of the guests lifted her spirits. Among the familiar faces, she spotted Carla, and next to her was the designer, Lucas. He was tall, with dark hair and a charming smile that seemed to light up the room. Julia, I've introduced you to Lucas. He's an incredible talent, Carla said enthusiastically. Hi, Julia. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you and your work, Lucas said in a smooth, welcoming voice. Thank you. It's great to be here, she replied, feeling an immediate connection. The conversation flowed easily, and Julia realized that Lucas's kindness and charm made her forget, even if just for a moment, the pain that had been with her. You have a unique eye for fashion. I'd love to discuss some ideas with you one of these days, Lucas suggested, his eyes shining with genuine interest. I'd love that, Julia responded, feeling a mix of excitement and hope. At that moment, she realized that despite the betrayal and pain, life still had pleasant surprises in store, and maybe, just maybe, she was ready to start anew. Julia was in her fashion studio, surrounded by colorful fabrics and sketches of her new collection. The soft sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the space and bringing a renewed energy. She had decided it was time to leave behind the pain of betrayal and dive headfirst into her career. With every cut of fabric and every stitch on the sewing machine, she felt herself growing stronger, more independent. This is going to look amazing, Julia, exclaimed her friend and assistant Fernanda as she held up a sky blue dress that was nearing completion. You've really outdone yourself this time. Thank you, Fer, Julia replied, smiling. It's good to have something to focus on. I feel like fashion is my place, the only place where I can truly be myself. The two began working together, discussing ideas and making adjustments to the designs. Julia felt at ease during those creative hours, as if each stitch was also mending her emotional wounds. She looked in the mirror, admiring her reflection, and saw a woman who was slowly rebuilding herself. Meanwhile, Daniel wasn't willing to give up so easily. His pleas began to flood Julia's phone, messages filled with regret and promises of change. Julia, please, hear me out. I made a mistake. I don't know what came over me. An endless stream of attempts to reach out that she decided to ignore. Her mind insisted that there was no longer room for him in her life. With each passing day, The silence regarding Daniel became more comfortable. Julia was learning to value her own company, and the idea of a future without him was beginning to seem less daunting. Fernanda noticed the change in her friend and, during a moment of relaxation, asked, "And what about Lucas? Have you two been talking?" Julia hesitated. Lucas, the charismatic designer she had met at the fashion event, had become a pleasant presence in her life. He encouraged her to follow her passions and reminded her of how talented she was. "I like him, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for something new right now." "Julia, you deserve to be happy. Don't let the past stop you from living new experiences. Sometimes a new love can be the healing we need," Fernanda said, holding her friend's hand with empathy. That night, a launch party for a new collection was being prepared in a trendy city venue. Julia was nervous, but the excitement of showcasing her creations to a new audience was electrifying. Upon arriving at the event, the glow of the lights and the vibrant music enveloped her. She began to relax, talking with friends and admirers of her work. It was then that she spotted Lucas, who was chatting animatedly with a group of designers. He saw her, and his smile lit up the room. "Julia, you look stunning," he exclaimed, leaving the conversation to approach her. "I'm excited to see your creations tonight." "Thank you, Lucas. I'm excited too. I hope you like what I've prepared," she replied, feeling a warmth rise to her face. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and shared glances. Julia realized that being with him made the sadness she had felt in recent days begin to fade away. "How about we dance?" Lucas suggested, extending his hand. Julia hesitated for a moment, but the joy of the music and the lightness of the moment encouraged her to accept. As soon as they started dancing, she let herself go, realizing that she was genuinely having fun for the first time in a long while. Laughter mixed with the notes of the music, and for a moment, Julia forgot about Daniel and all the pain he had caused. She was there, living in the moment, surrounded by people who supported and inspired her. As they danced, Lucas whispered in her ear, "You're amazing, you know that? Your strength and creativity are contagious." Julia smiled, a smile that radiated hope and renewal. She realized that even though the wound of betrayal was still present, new possibilities were opening up before her. Life, with all its complexities, was revealing itself to be more vibrant and full of opportunities. And with each step she took, she felt more confident in her journey of self-discovery. The sun was already low on the horizon when Julia entered the cafe she had chosen to meet Daniel. The soft light filtered through the windows, creating a cozy atmosphere. But Julia didn't feel comforted. She took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts and emotions before seeing him again. The pain of betrayal was still fresh, but now there was a new element in her life: the determination not to allow Daniel to hurt her again. When Daniel entered, with the expression of a man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, Julia watched his every move. He seemed a bit thinner, as if guilt was consuming him. He approached the table, a nervous smile on his lips. "Hi, Julia. Thank you for seeing me," he said, his voice trembling. Julia stared at him, her eyes cold. "I'm not here to discuss what happened. That's not what I want. I know I messed up. I let myself get carried away. But I'm here now, and I want to make amends," he said, the urgency in his voice growing with each word. "Make amends? You think a few words can erase what you did?" Julia's tone was firm, but inside, the storm of emotion still raged. "I saw the messages, Daniel. I saw everything. There's nothing you can say that will change that." He sat down, his head lowered, as if trying to find the right words. I don't know what I was thinking. I was confused. What I have with you is real, and I don't want to lose that." "Lose what? A relationship built on lies and betrayal?" Julia felt the anger rising but controlled it. "You don't understand that this isn't just about feelings. You broke the trust I had in you." He lifted his eyes, now pleading. "Please, Julia, I know I can't change the past, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. I love you." His words hit her like a wave, but Julia couldn't let herself be swayed. Love isn't just a word, Daniel. It's an action. And your actions showed exactly the opposite. I can't be the only one fighting for something you clearly didn't value. She paused, observing the man she had once loved. You know, I thought we'd be together forever. But now I realize I can't build my future on the ashes of what you destroyed. Daniel seemed desperate, his hands trembling on the table. What can I do to prove that I've changed? Please give me a chance. You don't get it, do you? It's not about a chance. It's about me loving myself enough not to accept less than I deserve. And that includes having someone who respects me and doesn't betray me. Julia's voice was firm, but a part of her still wanted to cry. So, that's it? You're leaving me? He asked, disbelief in his voice. Yes, Daniel, I am. I can't keep hurting myself for someone who didn't know how to value what he had. Julia felt a growing lightness within her, as if she were finally freeing herself from a weight that had been crushing her for so long. She stood up, feeling adrenaline coursing through her body. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it's not me. Not anymore. With one last look at him, Julia turned and left the cafe. The fresh air hit her like a balm, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was taking control of her life. Walking through the streets of San Francisco, the city lights shone brightly, reflecting the new light that was beginning to shine within her. Julia realized that the farewell to Daniel wasn't an end, but a new beginning. The journey ahead would still be long, but now she was determined to move forward, stronger and more confident than ever. A few weeks had passed since the dramatic turn of events that marked Julia's wedding day. The sun was shining brightly over San Francisco, but the city seemed to have a new glow in Julia's eyes. She had distanced herself from the pain and betrayal, focusing on her work and her friends. The fashion designer was about to launch her new collection, a project that reflected not only her creative vision, but also her resilience. One morning, while reviewing the final details of the collection in her studio, Julia received an unexpected call from a mutual friend, Marco. He sounded agitated on the other end of the line. Julia, have you seen the news about Daniel? His voice was filled with concern. It seems he's involved in something big. The police have called him in for questioning about an illegal business scheme. Julia felt a wave of emotions upon hearing this. It was a mix of relief and justice. I can't believe it. He was always so charming, but I never fully trusted him, she replied, her voice firm. Finally, something is being done. Do you remember what he did to you, don't you? The betrayal, everything. Marco began, but Julia interrupted him. Yes, I remember. And it only makes me feel like my instincts were right. He isn't who I thought he was. After hanging up, Julia sat at her desk, looking out the window. The bustling city outside reflected the new phase of her life. In a few days, her new fashion project would be revealed to the public, and she was eager to show the world not just her creations, but also her inner strength. The past seemed distant, like a shadow she had finally managed to leave behind. On the night of the launch, the venue was filled with guests, all eager to see Julia's new collection. She was stunning in a dress she had designed herself, a piece that symbolized her journey of self-discovery. The vibrant colors and flowing lines of her creations reflected the rebirth she had experienced. Lucas, her new professional partner and friend, was by her side, offering support and encouragement. You look incredible, Julia. No one would guess you've been through all that, Lucas said, admiring her with a genuine smile. You've really outdone yourself. Thank you, Lucas. I couldn't have done it without you. Your confidence in me meant the world, Julia replied, smiling back. She felt herself falling for him, not just for his looks, but for the way he made her feel alive and valued. As the night progressed, people began to gather to see her collection. Julia walked among the guests, receiving compliments and enthusiastic comments about her creations. Every smile, every word of support made her feel stronger and more confident. In a moment of pause, Julia stepped away from the crowd and looked up at the starry sky. She thought of Daniel and everything she had gone through, but she no longer felt anger or sadness. There was a sense of peace within her, a certainty that every challenge had shaped her for the better. I'm really ready to move on, she whispered to herself. When Lucas approached, he took her hand. Shall we dance? I want to celebrate this new phase with you, he said, gently pulling her. Julia smiled without hesitation. As they danced, the music enveloped them in a warm embrace. She felt light, as if she were floating. You know, I've always believed that things happen for a reason, Lucas murmured as they danced together. And I'm sure you're destined for great things. Julia smiled, her heart warming with his words. She knew she had found someone who respected and supported her, something she had never had with Daniel. The night was full of new possibilities, and finally, Julia felt free to embrace her future. The past would no longer define her. Now it was just a part of her story, a story in which she was the protagonist. If you enjoyed this story and want to keep following more inspiring content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your subscription helps us bring more exciting stories to you. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video, and share it with your friends so everyone can be inspired too. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.